Hey, what's up, guys? It's Josh, and this is the Empowered People Podcast, Valentine Edition. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's the Empowered People Podcast, where each and every week we're going to tell, share, and listen to stories that are meant to motivate us to action, to motivate us to movement. We believe that so much education, opportunity, success, basically everything good in life comes when you're willing to move. In studios this week, I am excited and a little terrified because I'm putting my money where my mouth is. You know, each and every week we say that these stories are meant to motivate us to action, not motivate you to action. Like, I've got this all figured out. I know all the ins and outs. I've arrived. That's not the case. In studios this week, we have my beautiful wife, Bridget Levin. This is a podcast that we've been thinking about for quite some time. Actually, I think I was thinking about it and she was avoiding it. Because entrepreneurship is a lot of times talked about, and you talk about the personal struggle, you talk about the health conflicts that you experience, you talk about the stress, you talk about the late nights, the early mornings, all the pressure that's put on the entrepreneur, when a lot of times, you know, that saying, behind every great man is a great woman, or something like that. In our case, it could not be further, or not further from the truth, it could not be more true that Empowered Electric wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Bridget. I think you guys have heard me tell the story that I wouldn't even have become an electrician had she not been in the Lowe's line with me saying, hey, buy the tools, let's make the sacrifice, let's jump ship, and let's do this. So in every way, everything good in my life, this company, my job, my kids, all that goes to her. And we're kind of wanting to, you know, Valentine's Day is coming up, and we want to kind of just pull back and just say, like, what does it look like to be an entrepreneur and be a husband, be a wife, those kinds of things. So it might get a little hard, man, because I know I always tell you the heroic side of the stories. We're here to give a full explanation and image of the story. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
The way that we met, the way that our relationship began, should have let you know that there were going to be some ups and downs, I would say.
I think so.
Because she dated my best friend in high school and treated him horribly.
Wrong.
What? That's how I remember it.
No.
What do you remember? How did we meet in high school?
Well, the very first time I ever saw you, you were sleeping on the back pew at church.
It was boring. Have you ever taken a nap on the back pew of a church? It's pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
That's and then what?
And then you dated my best friend in high school. So,
yeah, it was a little
very jerky.
So I was definitely 0-2 in the count. I was definitely striking out pretty hard, but it was weird. It was just weird. Like, we were friends. I mean, I was dating your best friend, and I wasn't a super nice guy. I kind of thought I was too cool for school.
I mean, you were nice to girls. You were just not nice to the girls you were dating.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. But it's just funny. Like, I mean, we just never, I don't think we ever, did you ever think about dating me in high school?
Nope.
I think you did. No, I didn't.
But
I didn't
remember,
either.
You did save me that one time in high school.
I did save you?
I was like homeschooled.
She was
homeschooled,
homeschooled, so she's one of those people.
And then I jumped into public school in 10th grade. So I literally was the most naive person ever.
And literally her first day, so it commons, the common area, you know, where there's tables everywhere. Literally the sleaziest dude. I'm not going to say his name.
I'm reading my Bible at the table.
She's reading her Bible at the table, and Mr. Sleazeball walks up and he's like, yo, what are you reading? And she's like, oh, I'm reading Galatians. And he's like, yo, Galatians is my favorite book.
He said, maybe sometime we can get together and have a Bible study.
And she's like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. And I'm like, no.
I just see out of the corner of my eye, Josh, running across the commons. And is like, Travis, get lost.
Whoa, you called him out. You said his name. You did that.
Was that right? Was it that?
Yes.
That's pretty good.
But so anyway, so we went to high school together. We were always friends. We never dated. But we really started dating. I decided that I was going to run a marathon, and her brother, Michael, her older brother, who's a Baltimore City firefighter, also wanted to run one. He was like, well, dude, why don't you just fly up and run the Baltimore City Marathon with me? And then, so we were going to do that. And then little did I know, Bridget was like, oh, I might come. I'll come and watch you guys. I think she had ulterior motives.
No.
She definitely did. Because at like mile 16, she like jumped out of the crowd and like fought through to give me chapstick.
You guys told me to do that.
That's not how I remember it.
You're like, at mile 20, make sure you have chapstick for us. But you can remember it like that if you want.
Well, no, it's just funny, man, that just our lives had intertwined since we were 15 and 14 years old. Started dating when we were 20, and I'm that guy. Like we started dating after that.
Talk about Josh being quick and me being more slow. He's like day 3, like we're getting married, and
literally day 2 told her like I'm marrying you. And she didn't call me her boyfriend until we had been dating for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, if that doesn't like set up what we're about to talk about, I don't know what does. I've told the story that, of course I ask your dad if I can marry you, and he says, no bloody way, you're a bloody joke, which kind of leads your mom to helping me find a job that has insurance. I become an electrician. I'm kind of pursuing you. I'm very hot for you. People that are watching on YouTube can see why. Hey. It is what it is. But so I entered the scene of, becoming an electrician, kind of starting a career, a new career, being extremely ambitious. I would almost say like the achiever part of my life at the exact same moment that we were getting married.
Yeah.
The reason I want to start here, guys, is because like entrepreneurship doesn't happen just in a split second. It doesn't happen day one. I mean, there's been a lead up to it. So why don't you talk about that? Like we're newly married and I'm trying to build my career.
Okay. I was thinking about this like before I got here, and I've listened to all the podcasts, like it's the highlight of the boys Mondays coming home from school. And I was like, it's always super positive and uplifting. I'm like, in enters Bridget with her hot stories of what the chaos ensues of starting a business. So I feel bad about that. Like I'm probably gonna shed a bad light on it. Not a bad light, but I guess more of the hard stuff, the ugly stuff. And
well, yeah, I mean, the example would be like we celebrate Christopher Columbus. He made the journey over from England to America. Dude, you don't think people were dying and vomiting all over each other, and it was tragedy for the months that it took them to get across? Like, let's be real. It was hard. And so, I mean, once again, jumping into the career and newly married, like, did we have a honeymoon phase? Like, what was that like?
No, like as soon as we got married, I mean, my envision of like marriage and stuff is us like waking up and eating breakfast. And I remember you literally were up at like 4 a.m., like getting ready for work. I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is happening? But, so yeah, there was like, I think every week you worked over 60 hours and were gone a lot. And so even like, I listened to your last week's podcast where you were talking about going to Hayes, and then you got to go to Columbia, and like my stomach kind of turned hearing those stories, just because it was like I was remembering all those opportunities for you meant like sacrifices for us. So everything that like you viewed as a great opportunity kind of came as a sting, because it was you getting taken away from family time and being home with us. Like Hayes, you were gone all week. And so that was hard because we literally got pregnant right away. So, and I was still working part-time at a daycare. So we, yeah.
I know. Do you remember what that was like? Because I told the story. I remember getting the call from, the owner of the company and him saying, hey, I have this great opportunity. Yeah. And I remember it kind of sucks, and maybe it hurt you more, because I remember him saying, do you remember he was like, the schedule's such that you're going to be able to work 3 12-hour days and then have 4 days off. And that probably kind of excited you, that thought.
Yeah, it did. And they were also like, and we can take your family down there. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
And like,
did you ever go?
Yeah, we went there once. Like, I think I had Cooper, and it was in like the dumpiest hotel, and there was like flies the size of like quarters flying everywhere. It was like the worst experience, and we had like no money. So you're like, would you like a Taco Bell burrito? And I was like, no, I want to go home. So that was not a great opportunity.
But what sealed the deal that sent you out of Hays, Kansas in the lobby of the hotel?
Oh, someone came up to complain at the hotel about the flies, and the lady behind the counter rolled up a newspaper, rubber banded it, and handed it to the guy. And it was like, here. I was like, get me out of here. What's wrong with this town?
I feel like the next time that I asked you to come with me, you kept driving and went to Colorado to
visit my sister. Yeah. But I think the next time I got to go to Missouri, Columbia with you, and I picked out the hotel. They like just gave me a fund, and I price lined it and found the hotel myself.
Yeah. So they, and I mean, I remember it. So it was funny. You mentioned that I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning. It's because so much of our work, even though we were a Kansas City based company, we were working in Columbia or Warrensburg, and we were having to carpool with guys and drive, a couple hours. I don't know. I mean, there was definitely Saturdays where Friday night they would ask me to work at a Saturday somewhere, and I would Google map it because I didn't have neither of us had smartphones. Yeah. So I like MapQuested it, and it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes away. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, you're finding out about this early. So yeah, it definitely did affect you, especially if you were looking forward to the weekends.
Yeah, that was always hard. You worked a lot of weekends, and I remember the achiever in you, I didn't really understand that. So I remember asking, who else was working? Was so-and-so working? Are they working? And I just keep asking you, like, to see if, like, really, is everybody working, or are you just, like, the only one they're sending out? And a lot of times it was just you. You had that, like, in you to just, just achiever. You wanted to be the one out there that working on a Saturday, and I'd be, like, so jealous that other guys weren't working and they were home with their families.
Yeah, one thing I can't remember if I ever talked to you about, because, when we were married, that 2008 recession happened, and the company that we worked for went from 140 to about 40. Mm-hmm. Like 100 people got laid off. I mean, close friends of ours, got laid off. And had I ever talked to you about how, like, it was in me that I had to work so that wouldn't happen, that I wouldn't be the person that got laid off or anything? Or did that ever enter your mind, or did I not communicate that to you? Or
not at the beginning? I think communication is hard when you first get married. I think you don't know that person so well. And so I don't think you communicated that well at the beginning. Like, why were you working so much? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to hear me say it a lot as we go forward as to, where we are, because we didn't say this, but we are extremely happily married. So I think Bridget's going to be a little tentative because she doesn't want to hurt my feelings or be real, but I think it is helpful to, she will poke jokes, that's for sure. But she's going to be a little tentative to like throw me under the bus, but I think it'll give a clear picture. But like one of the things is like dates and things like that. Like we're going to talk about a lot of good stuff, but back then, I mean, I feel like, we had like no money in the bank account ever. Mm-hmm. There was things like, you think I'm exaggerating, but Bridget never exaggerates, so she can hold me accountable. Like we would pay our bills and have like $7 left over in our bank account, and we would like get.
And you'd be out of town, and so I couldn't cook for you with the groceries I had. So I'd be like, "You can't eat out. I don't know what you're gonna do. Like find a way to eat for nothing."
Yeah, because there was no per diem, so I would take like at the continental breakfast or whatever at that nasty hotel where the rubber band fly swatter.
Yeah.
I would just take like 4 apples like from the breakfast buffet and be like, well, that's what I got. Mm-hmm. It was definitely rough, but we would pay our bills, have $7. We'd get a Chipotle salad and split it and get a Redbox, and we would watch the Redbox movie on her old school Dell laptop because we didn't have a TV. It was rough. So we didn't have a lot of money to like go on dates or go have fun together. So it was just kind of intensified that even more.
Yeah. I remember in one of the recent podcasts, you were talking about money to buy tools. And we like literally used the money from our wedding that people gave us as gifts to get you tools to start working. So that was like
Dang, that's commitment right there. Like I said, guys, like Empowered Electric would not exist if it wasn't for Bridget doing that. I mean, think about how many wives are willing to do that. Not very many. So, we look back on Columbia though, and it was fun because we kind of hit a breaking point where I was like, because that was rough. You were pregnant with our second kid.
No, I hadn't.
Right? Well, but I know at the start of it, you were pregnant with Lewis, and then you had Lewis while I was at Columbia.
Okay, yeah.
You actually went into labor, and I had to go to work and work all day.
Yeah, I remember I was in labor, and you're like, how far along do you think you are? I'm like, I have no clue. You're like, do you think I could get to work and come back before you have the baby? And you were working an hour and 45 minutes away. And I knew you only had one vacation day. So if I took it while I'm in labor, then you wouldn't get to take it when you had we had the baby. So I sent you to work. And I held off till you got home.
Yeah, that was crazy. But, we kind of hit that point to where we were like, hey, man, I can't keep doing this because enrolled in college, like
you
lot of
went
stuff.
To them and said that, like, I'm going to lose my family if you don't find a way either to get me home or get my family there. So they paid for us to go there. And
when you say they, do you remember who it was? Paul Shoemaker. Yeah. Paul, my business partner. The reason I bring it up is just once again, like Empowered wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got us money. And Bridget didn't hit on. So remember, her dad tells me no bloody way. I'm a bloody joke. I got to get out of debt so I can marry her. So they give us like $200 a week or it was some amount of money. I don't remember how much, but Bridget found Priceline.com hotels for cheap and like would every day like low bid. I don't know if you remember this, but so like you could put that you want a 5-star hotel and it would tell you like a minimum bid is like $100 and she would put like $20. And then if it rejected it, you couldn't bid again. So she would always be like 2 weeks in advance and she would start at like $20 and then the next day she would do 21 and then 22. And usually she would get it like for like no more than like $25 a night, like a 5-star hotel, like crazy elaborate, but like she was gonna find a way to like make that money.
Yeah, every week we stayed at a different hotel because you never knew which one they would approve.
Yeah. It was hilarious. It was a lot of work.
It was a good time for us because coming out of Hayes where you were literally gone throughout the week, I remember just like you'd get ready on Sunday. Would you leave Sunday night? Sunday night, all day Sunday. We had 2 days together. But all day Sunday, I was like anxiety, like because I knew you were leaving again. And so coming off of you being gone that long, going to Columbia and having that time together, even if I was stuck in a hotel with, I swear we had Lewis. No, we must have not.
I think you did have Lewis. No, you definitely had Lewis.
I was crawling on the dirty carpet and I was something like that. But anyways, yeah, that was just a good time.
So yeah, that was super interesting, that job. But then like we went from that job, we went to Thomas Edison, we were in town. How many times did I call you frantically to bring me something at Thomas Edison Elementary?
I can't keep track of that stuff. Like how many times did your car not start before Columbia and you said either get in the car now and go to Columbia at 4 a.m. with the kids or you're going to be stuck all week without a vehicle? Yeah,
I've definitely put you through some stuff. That's for sure. So we're at Thomas Edison Elementary. We're in town. Things are doing a little better from a work standpoint. Yeah. And then I got pulled into the office. Do you remember that bringing a lot more stability or what?
Yeah. I remember I couldn't believe that you were working like 15 minutes from the house. Like that was just, I was like, if I needed you, you were 15 minutes from the house. That was just like a huge difference. Like even if I didn't get to see you more, you were still working long hours and stuff. I knew like if you weren't far, like the 4 hours, 2 hours was just like, if I needed him, like I remember getting locked out of the house and I wouldn't know what to do. And so
what did you do?
I moved the trash cans in front of a window and then climbed up them and got in the kitchen window while I was 8 months pregnant.
Dude, she's
the neighbors were like, what is she doing?
She is a scrappy survivor. That is for sure. Unless she's scared somebody's going to break in the house, and then she's just like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like, there's no fight in her whatsoever.
Yeah.
So there's survival instincts, but not fighter instincts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think someone has a gun, I'm just not going to stand to that. I'm dead.
So one thing I'm just wondering is, did it kind of make sense? Because it seemed like the trajectory of like climbing the ladder and succeeding and having more than $7 in our bank account kind of came from always volunteering to work overtime, always going out of town, like kind of making those sacrifices. Did you ever kind of see like that it was leading that direction, or no?
I feel like it's just a hindsight thing. Like when we get into like empowered and the struggles, and now being able to look back and be like, oh, that is why that was happening. I don't feel like I could see it in the moment. All I saw was like, it was always like the next thing. So you were like working hard so that you could run a job. You're working hard running a job so you could get a bigger job. And then so you can go to the office so you can, so it was just always seemed like with the achiever personality, there's always the next thing to achieve. So I think it still was hard. Like, even if I know you're working hard so that we can, make more money and things like that, it's still hard because you're still.
Yeah. And I mean, did you ever think like, dude, when's it going to be enough? Like, cause I mean, even like the college thing, I mean, driving to Columbia and back and going to college, which I didn't fully even remember that you had said that you worked hard to like get scholarships and grants and things like that.
Yeah, we got grants for that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, but I mean, still, it was a sacrifice of time. It was a sacrifice of attention and energy and all those kinds of things. Kind of.
I think I wanted you to find. You're like, because you have that dreamer too. I wanted you to find the thing that was like, there's your niche, you got it. And so if it was school and being, going after that, I was like, do it, like find the thing, because I don't know, you just with that dreamer personality, I don't have that, so I don't understand it. So yeah, it does always seem like it's never enough, because it's like empowered, and now I'm starting a podcast. I'm gonna like speak at stuff. I'm like, I just have to accept you're gonna keep chasing things.
Well, it's funny. So she watched that show, which if you haven't watched, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime, it is a phenomenal comedy about a woman stand-up comedian. And we're watching it, and Bridget literally is like, hey, you're not going to get any weird ideas about pursuing stand-up comedy, are you?
Gosh.
And I mean, no.
Yeah.
Yet. But no, I'm not funny. But yeah, I mean, I think it's weird, like, why am I driven? Because there's been a lot of different things that I've thought about, with engineering because of math, and pastoring because of caring for people. I've definitely been a dreamer, but it has seemed like there has been steps in the same direction. I'm not kind of bouncing all over the place where you see some people that it's just like one thing after another that are completely different. Like, we took the pay cut, which I think you said, which was true, that, we went from 17 or 18 to $11 an hour. And that was the only time in our lives that we were going to be able to make a pay cut like that. And like, had I climbed that ladder and then jumped off again and started at, $10 an hour, that would have been disastrous, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the jumping from thing to thing, I think like you have done that a few times, and I'm like, no, we need to stick to something. Like, we need to rein it in, because I don't
what?
know. What do you mean? Like, what have you jumped to?
Yeah.
I mean, you get ideas for everything. I don't know. You always are like shooting things out, and I'm like, whoa, calm down. Slow down. You're quick, and I'm like super slow. So
yeah. What did you say? You're like, I want to plan for the next 5 days, and you're like, no, I'm starting this tomorrow. Like,
yeah. Yep.
Okay,
That's
so I finally get into the office, and you're feeling that like there's stability. Walk me through your perspective of me coming home and saying, hey, what if I quit my job? What if I started a company?
Yeah. Well, I think
Do you remember anything from that?
I think I knew for a while something was brewing, and we had met with a few people to talk about like the ideas. And I think enough people were like encouraging you about it and kind of putting it in front of you that you'd be good at it, that I knew something was going to happen. And I think, too, with being married to somebody who, achiever, dreamer, like I didn't want, because I'm like slower and more steady, I didn't want to be the thing that held you back. So I knew you had great ideas. I knew that you were going to keep going until you like got to pursue those ideas. And I didn't want to hold you back. I wanted you to be able to be what you wanted to do, like do it.
So I hear what you're saying about not wanting to like hold me back, but like, so somebody just posted, it was like on Twitter or something that was like, if anyone holds you back from your full potential, what you're dreaming for, what you want to go after, and it's your spouse or your mother or whoever it is, forget them, they're holding you back. That's kind of concerning to me because like I hate that quote. Number one, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, what is it, you know, that Bible verse that says like, what is it? Profit a man to gain the whole world yet lose his soul. I think most entrepreneurs need to hear like, what does it matter if you're in top 500 companies but you get a divorce, like, and your kids hate you? Like that's not a good thing. So talk to me about that. Like, how did you know like, okay, this is a dream worth pursuing, I don't want to hold him back, but not like just let me run wild?
Yeah. Well, I think like I had no idea what pursuing like running your own company, how it affect me. I think going into it, I had no clue. I didn't know that it would have so much effect on our marriage, on the kids, on your health. Like, I didn't know that going into it. So that's one thing. What was the question again?
Well, the question was just like, how did you process like whenever I came home and said like, hey, what if I quit and started my own thing? Did you think it was going to be hard? Did you think it was just going to be great?
As like a wife of someone like you that has all these dreams and stuff, I think you have to know your husband well. So I was thinking about this the other day, like I trust you, and like you showed like me that you work hard. You're not driven by like weird motives of like, I just want to be the boss or things like that. And so I knew that I could trust you in that, that you weren't going to just lead our family down something so that you had power and like you were popular or something like that. But when you told me you want to start Empowered, well, we didn't have a name for it, but I think just like being naive was like probably the best thing that could happen to us, because like if I knew what I do now, like I'd been like, whoa, wait a second. Like, but
I had a really good plan that I had like talked to you about.
You had absolutely no plan, like zero plan. We were like, do you need a truck or a ladder or something? Like, yeah, maybe I do need a truck and a ladder. Okay, well, did you just quit today? Like, we need like a truck. So yeah, I think you went to lunch with your boss and you're like, I think I might tell him that I'm quitting. I'm like, okay, well, let me know what you do. And then you got out of the lunch and you didn't. And I was like, oh, okay, well, great. And then you're like, I'm going to go to his office right now. I'll talk to you later. I was like, oh my goodness, here we go. So yeah, I think we were just like super naive to a lot of things. And then in the midst of it, I'm Googling the heck out of like the wife of an entrepreneur. How do you survive? So maybe I should have Googled that first.
So, I mean, what was that like? So you said, you know, of course, didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
Did you kind of think, I mean, whenever I quit, we had 5 weeks paid vacation. I was able to cash that out. Did you think it was going to kind of be a slow start, or was it less stressful or more stressful day one?
I think day one, so we were running on like 5 weeks vacation and like our tax return. No, use that to buy a truck, I think.
I use that to buy a truck and a barbecue grill.
because we weren't starting without my barbecue grill. I don't know why. That was just in my mind. I wanted a barbecue grill. That later blew my face up. I think.
So I don't know if you guys have remembered that story. So there's a couple things. Number one, Bridget blew herself up one time, turning the grill or the gas fireplace on. She like calls me and she's like, where do you light this gas fireplace? And I'm like, it's by the logs. You turn it on and then you light it. Well, she had turned on the gas and then called me and then went over there with the lighter. And like, I just heard whoosh and she's like, oh, and like laughing in the background. So it was kind of funny, but the second time was not so funny, and it was in a barbecue grill, and that was the reason my Jeep got stolen. I want to point out, my Jeep did not get stolen because I left it unlocked with the keys inside. It got stolen because of Bridget. That's not true.
Yeah, whatever.
I just told the story. The story was, no, I'm not telling the story. No.
Where were we?
We were starting the company. And so work. So the reason I'm kind of bringing this up is because it's this kind of cycle, which I do think is in entrepreneurship. So what you said, so of course I'm going to paint myself in a good light, but I do want to hear your perspective because I think there's a lot of the other reason that I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that I talk to that ask me two major questions. It's the two questions I get from almost every single entrepreneur event I go to. Lunch I have, coffee I have, they ask two questions. The first question is, who the heck does your social media? Easy answer, Intrepid Creative. They make all the photos, videos, they produce this podcast. 100%. You think I'm like blowing air in them? No. That question is asked. The second question is, how is your marriage? Because most people are fighting all the time. They're not communicating. They're not having fun. They're not making more money. Because we didn't even talk about that. Yeah. Like we had climbed the ladder and got to where we were pretty comfortable and very well advised. We were told to make a budget, make it as tight as possible and work for that. But like there's the company's money and there's our money and our pay shrank drastically starting the company.
Well, shrank. We weren't even making money. I mean, like day one, we weren't going to get a paycheck that week. I mean, except for vacation and stuff like that. And then also we got dropped from insurances and your phone wasn't getting paid for. So I had to scramble and figure out insurance, which was, you're just like, I remember right after the company, you decided to start a company. I woke up and you were already gone. Like, I was like, are we not like gonna write out goals or something? Like, are we not like, do we have a name? Do we have like, no, nothing. You were just like gone, like, which is good. Just like, you've got to work. We have kids and a house, and we had just enrolled our kindergartner in a private school, which I was like, how are we going to pay for that? And so I went to work finding insurance and setting up phone stuff, like our payments. And then I think 3 months after starting your own business, I got pregnant. I was like, well, I hope this insurance works.
By who?
What?
Yeah, no. So once again, we had a great plan. No, there's a little bit of naive.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, another baby, great.
Yeah.
This will be perfect.
Yeah, fourth
But surprise, baby girl, finally got that girl. So kind of all worked out. The end.
Yeah, we planned that well.
Yeah, no, not at all. But what I was saying is, kind of dealing with the achiever, dealing with the dreamer, dealing with a person that was treating a company like it was his own. Because let's be real, like one day I thought I was going to take over that company. I kind of, I treated it like it was my own. I sacrificed for it like crazy to do all that. And then to go, hey, let's do it all again.
Yeah.
Probably had to be like just terrifying to you.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, and once again, so like the working late nights and working weekends, like talk about that, like the work, like just the hours worked at the beginning.
Man, it's kind of like a blur, but like I've said before, if I don't like try to remember and like go back to those times, like I'm not going to be relatable to other people and not be able to, just help people through that struggle. So it is like not my favorite thing to like stir up a lot of those memories because they suck really bad. And we were in a bad place. Like not going into it, kind of, because
I was
we
wondering
still didn't
that.
like our communication was probably poor just going into starting it. But yeah, and then we just immediately were running 100 miles an hour. Like you were just stressed out of your mind, working a ton. Like it was hard. I have like a million bajillion stories about things that
this is the time to share them because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs. So here's the thing too, like you were saying about hindsight, is I think some of these things you were saying to me, but I wasn't hearing them.
Yeah.
And I think some entrepreneurs right now are saying, man, my wife just bitches at me all the time. And that's what it sounds like to them. But that's not what she's meaning, or he or she or whatever is meaning. Or you're just like, man, she's not appreciating my hard work. They're hearing something different. Yeah. It's the telephone game. And so like sharing those stories about ways that I made you feel or things that were hard, I think is important, so that they can hear, hey man, this is what your spouse is trying to say whenever you're working late. So like, what time did I get off? What time did you expect me to get home? How did that work?
Well, first off, like you just like never charged your phone. So like I had no communication. So it wasn't even like we couldn't communicate. We literally like could not communicate because your phone was never on. You just had so much on your plate. You weren't even like considering to charge it, which is such a minor thing. But as like a wife at home with kids who have needs, who like could be in the ER and things happen, to not be able to get a hold of you was really hard for me. And that caused, I think, a lot of fights and a lot of the beginning of just hard things. Because that it communicates something to your spouse that you aren't going to even make it readily available for her to talk to you because you have too many things on your plate. So yeah, not charging your phone, I think, was the start of like poor communication. So which led to really random things happening at home and me not being able to get a hold of you. Like one day we had trucks delivered, which I didn't even know you bought trucks. And so I get a knock on the door, and I open the door, and it's these people who think that I know who they are, because obviously you should have told me they were coming. And they kind of like asked to come in. So I was like, okay. I just let them come in. And then they're like, how are you? And I'm like, good. And they just keep talking to me like I should know who they are. And then after like 10 minutes of them being in the entryway, they're like, you don't know who we are, do you? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I really don't. They're like, we just came 4 hours and we brought Josh's work trucks that he bought from us. And I was like, oh, okay, come in. And they sat down, so I immediately am like calling you and trying to not look like a frantic wife that has no clue what's going on with her husband's company. And it's just going straight to voicemail over and over and over. And I'm like, my blood pressure is just like rising, because they're like, I was like, what do I need to do? They're like, you need to fill out all this, like the titles on the vehicles, and would you like it under Empowered's name or Josh's name? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. And then they're like, and then we need a $40,000 check. I was like, oh, okay, let me run upstairs and see if I have that. I'm like running up the stairs, like calling you and calling you and calling you and calling you, and it's just going to your voicemail. I'm like, where can I find a $40,000 check? Because they've already been at our house for like a half an hour, and I've like served them cookies. I know all their kids' names, like literally knew their kids' names. And I couldn't delay it anymore. And like, I ended up calling Hunter, saved the day. He like rushed over, cut a check. He acted like he knew what he was doing, and he didn't even know what he was doing. Like, he's like, oh, make it out to, like, it was just nonsense. And so just things like that would happen. And then, like, you'd get home and be like, oh, sorry about that. And I'd be like, no, that's not just sorry about that. Like, that was embarrassing and terrible. So yeah, the phone thing was just like, just bad communication.
Well, and do you think, so you talked about like not knowing what was going on in the business or like what I was doing or things like that. Like, what was that like to, because I feel like there was a lot of those instances where you felt out of the loop.
I did. I didn't know a good line of like, I have my thing I'm trying to keep afloat, and you have your thing that you're trying to keep afloat, and where do we intersect? Because you were so overwhelmed with your thing, and I was so overwhelmed with my thing, that like you would get home, and I didn't want to know what is happening with Empowered. I want you to help me unload the dishwasher and put the kids to bed because I'm like losing my mind. So then I would miss out on knowing things that were happening. So then like I'd have girlfriends telling me, oh, I heard Josh is doing this. And those would just like really hurt, because I'm working hard so you can do these, you know, chase your dream. And like, I'm missing out on that. And like, you're building something great, and I'm just keeping, you know,
the little ones alive.
Yeah. Kids alive and things like that. In the beginning too, I was also pregnant, which adds like a lot more, just exhaustion, and like everything's so much harder when you're building a baby too. So with 3 little kids, because Cooper was in kindergarten and I was homeschooling 2 days a week, and then Lewis was 4 and Martin was 2.
So what do you think could have been, what would you have said could have been different, or what I could have done different to make you feel included, but yet not, how could I have come home and stepped into your world but included you in mine? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot about it, and it's hard to know how we could have handled things better. Getting a phone charger probably would be one.
Jab.
But
well, I think that so not to interrupt, keep thinking about some advice, but I think one thing about that is our pastor, one thing that we did do is there's a guy named Chris McGee. We thought about giving you his phone number because he is the marriage counseling wizard, but we're not going to do that. You're welcome, Chris. You better like this 5 stars. He would talk about like the water line. Mm-hmm. And he would say that like whenever everything's just piling up, it's like you're standing on your tiptoes and the water's right here and you're breathing through your nose. And so you have to look for ways to lower the water line where it doesn't solve all the problems. But if you've ever stood in deep water, like the difference between, you know, at your nose and under your chin is a world of difference. And so little things like charging your dang phone and you waking up to a clean kitchen. Those are 2 very small things. They do not solve all the problems. They do not get me out of hot water. They, you know, I can still be in trouble the morning before or the morning of next morning. Yeah, you know what I mean. But those were 2 small things. So what else could you say to, you know, a spouse or an entrepreneur to get the other one involved? Anything?
Well, like you take, there's like I feel like at the end of it, like when we would hit like a red line, and like you would like immediately call Chris and we need your help. We're like not doing well. I mean, it's hard. Like you had insane stress on you, and but like I'm just seeing you disconnected. And so I think I was scared too. Like, I think I was really scared that this is the way it's always going to be. Now coming out of it and being able to like see like there's light at the end of the tunnel is helpful. But in the midst of it, I was terrified. I was like, I don't see how this is going to end, how he's not going to always be disconnected from the family. I remember feeling scared. I remember feeling anxious, like that you were missing out on the kids. I got to like see things they're doing and experience it. And if you were home, I'd look over and you were just like twirling your hair, like somewhere far from us, like just thinking all the time, but not thinking at home. So like I don't know, it's hard to like be out of that and then be like, oh, this is what we could have done to like fix that, because you were building something. We didn't know what we were doing. It was our first time doing it. We're not going to be pros at knowing how to do it. I think coming out of it now, I think what I would tell wives would be, they're conflicted too. Like they don't want to just be on their phone when we're doing fun things, but like, because I remember watching you on your phone and you'd be like, 1 minute, I'll be there in a minute. And then you're like, it looked like you just didn't know what to do, but you always chose the work thing, because it felt like more of a pull. Like you could talk me down later, but you couldn't talk that, angry, like mad, business person down. Like you had to deal with them, where I could be pushed to the side and I would still be there. So I think, just, I don't know, looking back now, there's like things that I don't really know how we could have handled it better, but I think like acknowledging, like, we're both trying hard. We're like, you're trying to build something. I'm trying to support you, but also it's like terrible and I'm mad all the time. Like literally.
Not all the time.
Mostly.
Most of the time. So you mentioned that you were scared. Is this how it's always going to be?
Yeah.
Was it just about work, or were there other fears going on? Like what were some of the other fears?
Yeah. I think I was watching your stress like affect your health. You like never drank very much, and then like every night you had to have 2 beers. And I was like, what is happening? Like you like never drink, and like you couldn't sleep at night. And if I moved, I'd wake you up and you would want to be able to go back to bed. So you'd get up and like go to work. It was,
there was a couple times it was like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
3 a.m. Go to work.
I would go to bed and you wouldn't be home, and I wouldn't go to bed because I couldn't really sleep when you weren't home. So I wouldn't go to bed till like midnight, and then I'd wake up and you were already gone. Like we wouldn't even see you. It would be that much of you being gone that you would get home and we'd all be sleeping, and then you'd be running already in the morning. So yeah, your health, I was like always afraid you were going to have a heart attack or something.
So I've asked you a little bit about your fears, about which, I mean, we're legitimate. I mean, you bringing up which you communicated that to me whenever you said like, hey man, I'm not saying you're an alcoholic, but you've like your family DNA like has a long line of alcoholics. What are you doing drinking 2 beers every night? And it was like, I think I got pissed. I think I got angry and defensive and all that kind of stuff. And it's just how I'm going to calm down. But I did realize like it was a scary, like, yeah, what if this does turn into something? What if I do fall off the edge? And also I gained 35 pounds. I saw a picture of me holding up the original business card that Empowered Electric got made. And I was like a skinny, good looking chap. And golly, I'm sorry, Bridget, I gained the weight. But so, I mean, so we talked a little bit about fears, but what about like just frustrations or pains that, kind of me running the business caused you?
Yeah. I think like one big thing too was, I didn't realize that you pursuing your dream meant like anything that I was dreaming would be put on hold. So like we're literally picking up this load for you of like pursuing a passion and dream, and I was like gonna put whatever I had as dreams down. So like as a I like to write, and people would always be like, when are you gonna write a book, or when are you gonna start a blog? And that would almost like be painful to hear, because I didn't have time. Like I had no space for any of that. So I would say like, I can't. Josh is starting a business. Josh started a business. Like I can't do more than I'm doing. Like I have my plate full trying to keep everything down that I'm doing. So I think that was like something that we didn't know, or I didn't know going into it. There's like a lot of times you feel like you're sacrificing for someone else's dream. Like you had a dream of wanting to run a business and we went for it. And then I didn't realize I'm going to have to give up things that, I mean, hindsight, like it got better and like I can right now. But I didn't know that. Like the fear of like never knowing if this is going to always be this crazy and out of control, or if we will be able to make it work and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, what I keep hearing you say too is just the unknown.
Yeah.
Which to the entrepreneur, of course, you're like, yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if this is going to work. Most businesses fail. I'm scared out of my mind. I'm running 100 miles an hour. But, you know, you hear people say, like, don't let them see you sweat. And, like, as the leader, sometimes you have to be able to boldly go into uncharted territories confidently. That doesn't end when you get home. You have to, portray that same confidence and excitement into what they're doing. Like what I mean is, like, if a foreman called me, I wouldn't have been like, oh man, I'm so stressed out, figure it out yourself.
Yeah, because I was going to say, when you got home, when you got home, it was worst day ever. Everything's burning down. Like I got the like bad end of what's happening at Empowered. Like
the bad end?
Well, whatever, the dry end.
So funny story about Bridget. She has a unique talent at saying every saying wrong. I don't know what those sayings are called, but one day we were with some friends and she said, man, I really got the dry end of the popsicle stick. Not the short end of the stick, the dry end of the popsicle stick. She just says a lot of those things wrong.
It makes sense.
It does make sense, but it's not right. It's not right.
Nobody wants the dry end.
Nobody does, except for Matt. Matt wants the dry end of a popsicle right now. He wants anything right now. Matt looks so hungry. Cameras, look at Matt. But so, what I'm saying is like the unknown. So it's like, when am I going to get home?
Yeah, the unknown of like, even like what is in our bank account. Because like one story that popped up in my memory was, oh, these are so terrible. I feel bad telling them. But you were just running so hard that you didn't even ever transfer money into our bank account, like ever. So I was always like, do we have money? Like, I went to Aldi's with the kids, chaos of just, I'm tired, I'm pregnant. Aldi's is nuts, like always. And went to check out, swiped my card, and it didn't take. Swiped it again, and she's like, I'm sorry, but your card's not working. So I like call the bank, and we have zero money in the account. And I call you, and you were just like, I don't know, what do you want me to do about it? I'm like, you haven't paid us in like 3 weeks. Like, I can't buy the groceries. And we had the money. It's just like you didn't weren't taking the time to put money into our account. And it just, those things stick out in my mind as like we were like low on the totem pole, like even paying us. So like it was hard to believe, like when you would say like, I'm doing this for the family, when like you weren't paying us so we could get groceries. Like I knew we could buy groceries, but like there was no money in the account. I have the kids at the store and I had to like go home and leave all the groceries there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that does sting, because that literally is just an act of priorities.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I mean, we've been making money since day one. The money's in the account. It's just the writing the check and going to the bank and depositing it that I hadn't done. And it's just funny to like entrepreneurs. I think sometimes when you're so scared, you try to hold on to everything. Because literally I bring Andrea on board, and within 3 days she has direct deposit and auto pay set up.
When Andrea came, it was like, because you were having me write a check and like put it in ourselves. It was just so ridiculous. I was like, I don't understand. This seems like you could have a better system for like paying your family. But I love when Andrea came on.
Yeah. I mean, and so just for entrepreneurs that, you know, it's like, you can't, I mean, part of you has to be Rambo that's going to go fight the bad guys all by yourself. But like, Rainbow's also a movie that's make believe. And you've got to have an army. You've got to have a team. You've got to have people. Otherwise, all that stuff just falls on us. And you think it's falling all on you, but it is falling on the people you care about most.
You also don't realize what it communicates to your wife, your spouse. Like, that's a minor problem. I have bigger problems. But it's like, that's actually a big problem when I'm trying to buy food for our family and we don't have the money in the account. Like, so I think that also what you're saying to your spouse by like your actions of like not having your priorities right is like huge too, because you were kind of like, just figure it out. And I'm like, how do I figure that out? I don't know how to figure that out. Because I always did feel like your problems are bigger than my problems, but like my problems are big too. Like I'm having problems.
Yeah. No, and I mean, going back with that, I mean, I don't know if we had mentioned this, but I think we had got some counsel from an amazing dude, Patrick Majors, a business consultant friend of ours, and he kind of said there has to be an emergency eject button, that if it doesn't get better, Bridget can pull the plug, which it honestly did seem impossible. Like once the machine started going. Yeah,
there was no pulling the plug. And I knew that. I mean, you would constantly telling me that, like, you have the emergency, you can hit the red button and it stops. I'm like, there's no way. Like, well, I mean, maybe you would have, but I did not believe that was going to happen.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is, in my mind, it was December of 2017 that it had to be better by, right?
By that time, like
2016. It was December.
You already
2016,
have employees. Right? I'm not gonna be the one that pulls the plug and takes. You have like people working for you now. There's just no going back. The machine's rolling.
Yeah, no, it definitely did seem terrifying, but I do think, so the reason I brought that up is because bringing on Andrea, who was just a breath of fresh air. And I mean, when she started, it was only like 1 day a week. And then it was like 2 days a week and then 3 days a week, was just a massive, it freed me up a little bit to focus a little bit. And then the other thing was bringing Paul on, partnering up with him, not bringing him on, but actually partnering up with him, which, I think there was a little bit of concern, a little bit of reservation of like, hey, we've worked so hard to start this. Like, why would we just, quote unquote, give part of the company away to him? But I think there was a understanding with you and me that like the only way that we were going to survive or this was going to survive is if someone like him that was put together and processed and could handle the fires.
I think we're like in the Columbia where you went to them and were like, something has to change. Like, you need to have my family come to Columbia with us. But it was that times a million. Like,
and once again, it was Paul Shoemaker stepping up, which is fun. I mean, thanks
for saving our marriage, Paul.
Yeah, he's a great friend. He's been a great ally. But there was
another thing was just like, you always thought you had to be there. If somebody was working, you had to work. So like Saturdays, you'd be like, Bridget, they're working. I have to be there because I'm the boss. I have to be there. And so I was like, okay, but it was never, you never felt like they could run this, like they could work without you there. You always had to be there, making sure everything. I just remember like this weekend, you were like, guys are working this Saturday. And I thought, oh my word, I remember that never happened. You would be home with guys working. If any like problem happened at a restaurant, you were there. You never sent anybody. We'd have plans that night and you'd be like, I gotta go. And you'd like rush out of the house before I could blow up on you or anything, because you're like, I have to do this. I have to go. And so I didn't know in what ways to like put my foot down and be like, no, you're not. You're not going. You're staying home. You promised us that you're going to do this with us. A few times you'd be like, everyone get in the car and we'll go get something to eat, and then have to drive by a job site. And it would be like an hour of me in the car with the kids while you were like, I thought we were like driving by a job site, but you went in the back and put your tool belt on and started walking into the job site. I'm like, why did you bring us here? Like, luckily we had like movies in the car for the kids, but that was.
Definitely get a minivan with the DVD player. That is the moral of that story.
No, that is not the moral of that story. That is definitely not.
No, I remember that. And I remember it being,
was,
I think it was helpful for me. So I remember you saying, when to put your foot down and when to step in, driving the kids to school. That was a big thing for me. Maybe it wasn't a big thing for you. So I would say this to entrepreneurs, maybe driving. So our kids go to school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Bridget was just like, look, I'm not driving them and picking them up. So you have to drive them. And I'm like, well, Bridget, I can't drop them off till 7:30. I got to be at work at 7. And she's like, figure it out. Probably because she heard me say that for the last year and a half leading up to this. But it was good for me because, I slept in, I ate breakfast with the family, and I took the kids, and everything worked out. And so it was kind of a good, you kind of forced me to realize it doesn't all rest on my shoulders. I can make time for the family. It is important. And, the boys love it because every once in a while we get donuts or listen to Lecrae on the way in and, do little things like that. And, it was just a way that you did kind of put your foot down.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like you're not going until noon. I mean, it was 7:30. It was 30 minutes late. But it felt like an eternity for me. But once it happened, it was like, okay, I can do things like this. So I think that was extremely helpful what you did.
Because there's definitely there was times that you had to be there. But I could never radar, was this a time you had to be there or are you just pushing us too far? And so I don't know if you knew, when you were, I didn't really have to be there, but I feel like I need to be there. But it made me not trust, I have to be there or this is really important. I stopped trusting those words because everything's really important and you always have to be there. And so just overusing that urgency made it where I can't decipher when you're telling me the truth.
Yeah, no, and I mean that even goes back to, some of the guys we started the company with aren't here anymore because they would also put that pressure on me. They didn't care about you. They didn't care about us. They would make it feel like, oh, it must be cool to be the boss and be able to sit at home while we're making the money. You know what I mean? And it was now we have such a good team of guys that, guys work Saturday and Sunday this week. And super appreciate them. They stepped up in massive ways to get a job done. I mean, we were looking fantastic in front of the customer, and it's just fun for them to be literally I'm included on the group text. They did it apart from me. They did it not even with me asking, and they're all like, hell yeah, for the good of the team. We love this, and they're just all rah rah rah. And it's just wow, this is really cool because I'm getting to work on our marriage and focus on us. Yeah. Because, it was definitely tough. Yeah. What else what else stands out?
Just, I think a big thing is just not being home, being late. I remember, was it Martin that said, because this is before I could ping you on GPS and know where you were. So that actually is very helpful.
It's not helpful when so listen, real quick, side tangent. So the biggest hang up on my diet is after recording podcasts on Monday nights, I want Taco Bell or ice cream so bad. And one day I succumb to the temptation and literally she GPS pings me while I'm at Taco Bell and screenshots it and she's like, so you're on a diet, huh? It's got my face Josh at Taco Bell. Not cool, Bridget. We'll talk about this when we get home.
But it was helpful because so many nights we'd be sitting at the table because you told us a time you'd be home. So I'd have dinner ready and we'd all be sitting there. I'm like, wait, don't start yet. I think Daddy will be home soon. This sounds terrible, but it would be an hour and I couldn't, I didn't know where you were. So we'd end up eating. Then I'm just mad. And so once I started doing that, it would notify me when you were leaving, wherever you were. So I could put dinner in and not have everybody sitting at the table. But I remember Martin.
I think it was a question that said, what does mommy always say?
No, it was, does mommy love daddy? And this is brutally honest, how hard this time was. But Martin was like, daddy loves mommy, but mommy just always says, Joshua, you are late. And I was like, oh, I do say that a lot.
But yeah, I mean, it did seem, it's weird. It did seem like they always kind of took my side.
Took your side, little jerks. I'm like, guys, like daddy's never home. He has to change light bulbs, mom. Like, no one.
Yeah. So how do you think, I mean, you know, I think we could definitely keep talking about, you know, painful stories of ways that I suck.
Oh wait, I have more.
Yeah. I mean, if you have any other good stories, because we want to say, like, I mean, we're laughing. I mean, I hope you guys can hear that in our voice or see it on YouTube. I love her, like, with all my heart. Like, I mean, it was, you know, I feel like it's like, just imagine the Lewis and Clark days when dudes are like taking their family in wagons across mountains. I mean, what in the hell were they thinking, you know? I guarantee you the wife's in the wagon going, what in the, like, oh, hell no, you know? But like, I feel like that's kind of almost what it was. But like, I did see, you know, deep down, you know, coming from a past where there was so much poverty and welfare and eviction and things like that, like providing a stable, structured home was so important to me. You know, you being able to stay at home with the kids, us living in a house where they feel safe and comfortable, like those things were super important to me. And like, you know, I mean, there's definitely ways that I failed, but like we've been committed, you know. I mean, I think there's been times where you maybe daydreamed about leaving me. But, you know, I think we've been committed since day one, for sure. So hear that in our voice, that even as we talk about these things, you know, we're in it to win it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a time where I didn't feel like we were a team. I feel like we always, throughout our marriage, you always will say, but we're a team. We're a team. And it was hard because that was like the one time I was like, are we still a team? I don't feel like we're a team anymore. So it was just a hard season for us.
And so I think, so what would you think kind of brought us out of it, or were some really good things? Because I do think, so I would say to entrepreneurs, the more that you hang on to everything, it's going to crush you. So like getting Andrea, getting Nathaniel, getting Paul, you know, having guys like Sam and Andrew, guys that actually care. Because if there's employees that are causing you more stress and anxiety, that are causing you more friction, that's not good for your business, and it's also not good for your marriage or your relationships. So bad people have to go, and you have to hire good people. Like, don't hold on. Like, don't bare knuckle it. That's one thing I would say.
Also, I'd say, like, don't tell yourself, like, this is how it's going to be. Like, oh, she's nagging me. This is just how it's going to be. Like, we're just going to have this tension, because that is your wife's, like, biggest fear, that it's going to stay this way and it is going to be like this, that you're going to value your business over her, that you're going to, you know, take care of your employees and overlook her. Like, those are, like, don't tell yourself that this is just how it's going to be, because that is one thing I appreciated with Josh, was people would ask me how it was, and also I felt like I couldn't get help from people because we chose this. Like, this is like something we took on, and so I'm not like, my husband's not like in the hospital or something, like he's starting a business. Like, I can't take like help from people because I just have to figure this out. We chose to do this. But like
well, you did have great friends that did step up and help.
I did, and they would ask me like what like some people knew like our marriage was struggling and would ask like, what can I do to help? And I always said, like, when Josh stops listening to me, that's when I'm going to need someone to step in and help. But like, you always at least listened. You didn't like shut me off and walk out of the room. You would hear it. Wouldn't necessarily mean you would change what was happening, but you would like listen to me and like repeat back what I was saying, understand how that was making me feel, and you would say, I understand that. But we just didn't know how to stop the rolling like machine from like destroying us. So I think like some of the things that started helping was dates. We always say that.
Even before dates, though, like some of our early dates were like getting you included by like, if we did a restaurant and they had like a grand opening
Right.
or like a soft opening, they would invite us and we would go to that, and you would kind of get to see some of the stuff that we were doing.
Yeah, you would take me to like job sites too, which was helpful. But I think that I didn't love going on dates because honestly, we just weren't liking each other. So like spending time with you, I was like, if we're going to use this time, I'd rather you help me like get the house back in shape or like do something that's helpful, because I don't want to like go talk about empowered. But like, you just were like, we're doing this, we have to. And so that was a way that I was like, all right, we have to spend time together, even if we're not like totally enjoying each other, and like slowly it got better. But yeah, you took me to a charity event, and that stands out in my head because
it was free wine tasting.
It was free. We felt like big stuff. And I met people that you talk about, and you introduced me to people. Like I felt like I wasn't like so much behind the scenes, like when you would take me places. So that was a big thing. And then also like the Christmas parties for your company, and getting to see like what we're doing, what all the sacrifices for, and see the faces of the employees and the way that they responded to you. And because I did feel like I wasn't getting to see any progress of all this work we're putting in. And I remember Christmas parties were a big thing. Like, whoa, look what we're doing. Like we are starting an electrical company, and people work for us or work for you. And that was just like really neat for me to see.
Yeah. Well, and a couple things that I remember from those is it's easy when you go to like those types of things to like want to like go into network mode. And so you're going to like, oh, I need to meet that guy, or that I know that guy or that girl, or, like you kind of go into network mode, and then I leave you, which I've done before. Mm-hmm. I've like taken you to do an event, and then like, pshh, I'm gone like a rabbit. But the times that really stand out, that like that charity event, I stood by your side the whole time, introduced you. If the conversation was good with us, then we stayed. If it didn't, I didn't abandon you into the conversation, and we would leave. Because I think that's a key thing too, is like doing it together. And yeah, I mean, the Christmas parties, I mean, even from day one, it's been hilarious. Andrea gave me a thing today that said, we as a company worked, I think it was like 48,000 hours last year. We had $1 million in payroll. Like there's just crazy feats of like the amount of people and families that Empowered Electric has been able to, impact, whether it's current employees or customers or whatever it is. And it has been through a ton of sacrifice that you have made. Sorry, I have one more thing for sure, is for some reason, and this is going to sound really, really weird, but it's like equity in the company meant nothing to me. It was funny, whenever I partnered up with Paul, it did not matter because Paul was so important. Like number one, I think when it came to respect and trust and integrity and all these kinds of things that are like, you can't quantify them. There wasn't a person that I trusted more to partner up with than Paul. And people were just like, man, how can you give away half or this, that, or the other? And it's like, you have to realize like you can give half to a partner, or you can give half your stuff away in a divorce. And if like losing half equity in a company enables you to keep the things that matter most, equity doesn't mean anything. And so like that was probably one of the biggest, I wouldn't say it was a sacrifice because it was so beneficial, but it like, I don't think I realized the ripple effects that it was going to have.
I remember one of the huge things on bringing on Paul, like you never took vacation. So like if I went to visit my sister in Ohio, like I did the 12-hour drive with the 4 kids by myself because there was just no chance you were ever going to be able to take time off. And like, we took a vacation, you had to work a ton to get a weekend off. And then on vacation, you were on the phone the whole time. Well, as soon as like it felt like Paul came on, you could say like, Paul, I need to not answer my phone for these 2 days that I'm on vacation. And like, that was a possibility. Like before that was never a possibility because if a guy's working and something's not working right, he had to call you. Well, you could say, hey man, call Paul. And like, it was like, that was like big.
Yeah, no, because I think that was also heartbreaking is whenever I would think, or I would say like, hey, if I just work really hard for this whole week, we can take, a 3-day weekend off, and then that wouldn't happen. It would just
so
be those
yeah,
crushed expectations.
Yeah, those failed expectations. That's why, like, if you're in the midst of, like, you're an entrepreneur and you've already been doing it for a while, like, you've probably already stepped 1,000 feet away from your wife. And so there's not, taking one step forward is not going to do it. So, like, yeah, like, you started giving me some time to write. You started, like, cleaning up the kitchen at night. We started going on dates, and it was, like, slowly. But, like, you'd do something, like, be home late, and it would, like, kind of get us back to, like, I'd remember, oh, maybe he's not changing. Maybe he's not taking steps towards me. But, like, it doesn't fix overnight. It's not like one date and we're good. Like, we're back on track. We're communicating. You just had, like, a year of, like, tons of, like, ugly stuff happening. So, like, it's going to take time and effort, but show her that you're, like, taking steps towards her.
Yeah, because, I mean, you mentioned the dates. So going back to those, I do think those are a huge thing. Like, if you love each other, if you are committed to one another, I think dates are super important. And I think the first date's going to suck. And honestly, I think probably the first 5 dates are going to be pretty rough. But, I mean, we kind of paid for a sitter. Luckily, we had some family to offset that cost. I know it can be expensive, but you can find a way to do a cheap date. And the first 5, like, they were kind of always getting better and better and better. So the first one was rough. The second one, we had 5 minutes where we jacked around, laughed, and had a good time. And the next time it was 10, and the next time it was 5, and the next time it was an hour, and it just kind of bounced around. But it was still like, hey, I know last week sucked, but we're going again. And I do think that at that point, I was committed to getting back on track. And I think maybe you had lost a little hope, but I was like, no, we're doing this. Like, we're going to go on dates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, like the Gillette commercial, like, manhood, like, stand up, like, be courageous, like, pursue your wife, I think was important. So any final thoughts that you would say to, or funny stories that you want to bash me with? Anything that you think to wrap up?
No, I feel like I didn't do my job. You're not, like, crying or embarrassed at all.
No, it's definitely painful, because I think, I just think you got to see that other perspective.
Yeah.
Kind of like you said, I see opportunity, you see sacrifice. I see, advancement, you see time away from the family. And there's times that has to happen, but I feel like the entrepreneur has to know that and has to have a sense of what he's communicating to his spouse, what he's communicating to his kids, what's important, because that time flies. And, for us, it was a real brutal 1.5 to 2 years. And it's been a steady climb in a positive direction for the last 1.5 to 2 years. So, like, if you know that, I would say to any entrepreneur, I think the red eject button maybe had more to do. So the emergency eject button that Patrick Majors had told me, maybe it did have a bigger impact on me than it did you, because I internally had, because I mean, by that time, Andrea was on board, Paul was on board, Nathaniel was on board. Like, I knew I had to have at least not everything fixed, but the ship righted by that time. Like, there has to be structure or I'm failing. So I think pain at the beginning with a deadline is the best that you can say. But it does get better. I mean, husbands out there, do not give up. Do not sweep it under the rug. Do not accept, complacency or anything like that. Don't be allured by other women or powerful people. Don't do that. Stay away from that. It's not worth it, is what I would definitely say. Yeah, I mean, looking back, like, we can now look back and say it got better, but, like, in the midst of it, it's really hard to know that it's going to get better or know what it's going to take to get better. Like I said at the beginning, like, I really was, like, looking for support groups, trying to, like, get you in a support group, like, trying to find, like, we were fighting for it. So, like, I don't know if this is, like, at all encouraging, like, to stay in it and, like,
fight for your marriage, fight for each other, communicate, all those things.
Well, guys, I would say there you have it. I hope today, Valentine's Day, you're listening to this bright and early, and if you have not bought a present, get your butt out there right now. Leave work early and buy your special someone something special. Buy your special someone something special. A card, write something nice. I know that you're going to say, like, she might throw it in your face and say, oh, you only did this because it's Valentine's Day. So what? That could be the case, but it is a positive step forward.
Really write something inside, because I have like 3 cards that you gave me that you didn't even write your name. I was like, well, were you planning on reusing this? Did you want to reuse them?
Well, there's that. So I hope this at least gave you a little encouragement, a little laughter, a little thoughts that things can be better. Guys, have a great week. We will talk to you next. I'll talk to you next week. I'm not inviting her back.
No.
She's grounded. Have a great week, guys. Bye-bye.